Hi everybody, I'm Ben Sandel. I am a consultant with CDS Consulting Co-op. We are actually a cooperative of consultants to cooperatives. Mobius strip of consulting there. Most of our work, we work all across the country, most of our work is with grocery co-ops. So today I'm here in kind of a dual role because I am consulting to Granite City Grocery. I'm also going to show you the story in pictures of a co-op that I was the board president of and helped open in my town of Harrisonburg, Virginia. Hopefully to give you a sense of the process, since we're using the same process that Granite City is using, the same model for development of a co-op. And hopefully to get you a little bit enthused and excited about this really amazing project in your town, because you're going to see the outcome of all this work that's going on right now. And I will, since I'm not a local and you probably won't see me very often, I can be a little more forthright maybe than Emily and say, if you haven't joined, you should definitely join. And if you have joined, you should definitely tell your friends that this is an interesting, cool thing that's going to be great for your community. So, and I'm happy to entertain questions at any point, although once I get rolling it can be hard to break in, but I will definitely pause at the end for questions too. So, without further ado, this is, I'm going to actually take you from even before the living room through to the open store. But this is sort of an example of our transition, that we started out with this homemade logo there, the black and white one. Didn't work in color, didn't work big, didn't work small, demonstrated totally unsafe cycling. We loved it, and there's still some of us with the old t-shirts who see each other at the farmer's market and we're like, hey. But the logo that we actually ended up with works in black and white or in color. It works on business cards, it works outside on the building in big. So that represents for me part of this transition that happens. And we're just a regular group of people. That's our board and key volunteers, probably about 2/3 of the way through before we open. But in there you've got a school bus driver, you've got a linguist, a college professor, a ne'er-do-well, a gift shop manager, a slaughterhouse owner, just a bunch of regular people who thought, this is something that our community could really use. A lot of us were sort of co-op refugees from other communities that had co-ops and thought, we love them where we used to live. We'd love to have one in our own community. So we thought, maybe we should start. But to go to the very beginning, in our community, Harrisonburg, Virginia, we have a collectively owned restaurant. The restaurant's been there forever. It's been a collective for about 10 years. They're a neat bunch of people. Here's a sign in their window. And they opened a little grocery store that they called The Little Store, because their restaurant is called The Little Grill. And the little store had a big sign that said, Aisle 1. And then it listed everything in the store, because they only had one aisle. There was no research done whatsoever. There was, it basically was failing from the moment they opened the doors. But it was on the side of our downtown that was really struggling, that really needed access to food, to better food, and it had a loyal little following. So they put a call out to the community and said, will anybody take this store for free and keep it alive? So a group of us came to the restaurant for a public meeting and talked about it, looked at the finances and realized that there was no way to save this store. But the idea of bringing a grocery store to that part of downtown, we have no grocery stores in the downtown area at all, but especially that side of downtown, the more challenged side, the poorer side, we thought, yeah, that would be something we might be able to continue to work on. So that's when we moved to the living room and got our first flip chart, which you can see there, which you can't open a food co-op without flip charts. And so this, was kind of our core group, and we started meeting, and we started looking out there for resources and found that there was this concept, this model for starting food co-op that is, you can't really see that very well, but this is the concept drawn out on a chart page. This is actually the concept where you might be able to actually read it. But it's based around breaking the development process into 3 distinct phases. The organizing phase, which Granite City is basically through, where you're incorporating, you're building your membership structure, and you're beginning to get a good core group of owners together. You move into feasibility and planning, where you are doing your financial feasibility work, looking at, are we going to be able to pay off the debt it's going to take to start this? You're looking at your market feasibility, where you're seeing, is there going to be enough business here for us, including looking at all the competitors in the market? And you're also looking at other aspects, like, are we as a group, do we have the people and the talents that we need in place, and the energy needed to go through all the way. And then later on, there's even more feasibility aspects that come into play. And then the third phase is implementation, where you're actually doing the store design, hiring the general manager, raising all the money, building the store, and hanging in there with it through those critical and rather challenging opening days until the store achieves sustainability. And surrounding all of that are these 4 cornerstones that you need every step of the way. Vision, talent, capital, and systems. Basically, you've got to have a clear vision, a good dream for what this is going to be and what it could do for the community. You need talent, both local, people working really hard. You also need, legal advice, accounting help, consulting, financial help, all kinds of things there. An architect, a store designer. You need capital, obviously. Money is really important. And systems. That's all kinds of systems. You need to have a way to track your member owner numbers and monies. You need a governance system. Eventually, you'll have a point of sale system. So that's the model that we used, and that's the model that Granite City is also using, and it's the model that I work with co-ops across the country to help them use so that they can have as successful an opening as possible, successful store. I'm not going to get into this in great detail, but this is just a little bit of a rundown of my community. It's a little bigger than here. It's a little lower median income than is sometimes considered the ideal co-op community. Certainly it's a lower education level. Our cost per square foot, our store ended up being about 6,100 square foot, of which about 4,000 is retail. And our cost per square foot is typical. You can do it, you can spend a lot more, but it's hard to spend a lot less and have a good outcome. But we'll get into that. So we realized pretty early on that if we were going to get this thing going, we had to build support. We had to get more owners. We had to, reach people. So we had parties. That was one of the first things we did, was started having parties. This is our February Fest. It was much beloved in our community because nothing happens in February in our community. The police came to this one later. That's how good a party it was. No problem. Just we were exceeding the legal limit for the space. But they were fun, and they were a way for us to get the word across to people and build support and ownership. This was another way that I'm glad to see Emily is also working on building ownership. I gotta say, it's a slow way to do it. Not the most efficient, but nevertheless, we also took it to the community in other ways. We marched in the July 4th parade. We tabled all over town. We spoke to the Rotary clubs and the Ruritan clubs and all the churches and the one synagogue and the one mosque that we have in our community. Anyone who would talk to us, we would talk to them. We held events at some of the swanky restaurants in town. We held them in people's living rooms, and we held them in the basement of cheesy bars in town. So we went everywhere we could go to get the word out that we were there, this is what we're doing, we're trying to make something happen in our community. And we also used a lot of different materials, similar to what you have back there, buttons. These are little grocery bags, like lunch bags that have a thing in it you can take out and then fill in to become an owner. And we said, bring it to our grand opening and we'll fill this bag with something fun for you. And a few people actually did bring them. We had bookmarks. We were about to spend a ton of money on yard signs until one of our volunteers did an awesome thing and called the city and found out that indeed commercial lawn signs are illegal in our city. We worked with our farmers market to build rapport, to build trust there, because that can be a touchy area. The farmers market folks, the vendors, sometimes feel like we're in competition with them, that we might steal business, but actually in reality there's lots of examples across the country of farmers markets and co-ops being really strongly synergetic. They help each other out, they support, they're sending the same message to the community, which is know where your food comes from and love your food. Eat local food, cook at home, it's fun. So we did spent a lot of time with our farmers market, and we had more parties. I think that was our third annual meeting that we did at the Masonic Temple. So, keep trying to get the word out there. That was what we did. Eventually, we actually signed a lease with contingencies, meaning we signed a lease with certain things that had to happen in order for us to move forward. So we're saying, yes, we're legally bound to this space unless we can't raise enough money, unless the landlord can't assure us that there's not going to be any environmental disasters inside this building that we are not going to pay for. And that's a really important part of the process for all co-ops. You have to have that first step is the lease with contingencies, so that you can make sure you're going to be able to get everything in place in order to move forward. And the two things there that show you what we're between, the local soft serve shack and the post office. Those are, we're nestled right between that. In a space that was a grocery store about 25 years earlier. And actually this room reminds me of how when we first were looking at this space and we were talking to the landlord, who was from the family that owned the grocery store that had failed in that location, conventional grocery store, and he was very negative. He felt like we were insane, like there was no way this was going to work in our community. So we kept inviting him to some of those events. And the first one he came to was an awesome event like this, standing room only, and he looked around and said, "These co-op people show up." Yes, they do. So that and spending a lot of time in his living room at his card table drinking bourbon, we finally convinced him that we were the group that maybe he should lease to. So we signed a lease with contingencies, which means we have some use, but we can't actually do anything to the space yet. And this is one of the only pictures we have of the space before we actually signed that lease. And if it looks dingy and bad, it's because it was. It was very run down. Since the grocery store closed 25 years ago, there's been a series of short-term tenants who did nothing for the building but let it go downhill. So it was pretty rough looking. You can also just barely see back here and over there. Those are the largest buildings in our community. They're the grain towers from the feed mill downtown. So that's kind of, that's what it looked like when we took possession of it. That sign the city first said, that sign, can't use it. Well, it doesn't match our current sign laws, but we'll let you use it because it's still there, it's grandfathered in. And then after we had designed our new sign for it, they said, "Oh, we just realized it was hit by lightning 3 years ago and condemned. Has to come down." That's how it works. So we went ahead and put a sign up because, took the windiest day of the year to put a big metal sign on the side of the building. And we threw a party because that's what we did. But it was an awesome party, wonderful day. Let people roam around inside even though there were, the floor was all messed up and there were hanging wires and stuff like that. But, we took out one-day insurance for it. But again, we were just trying to build community, get people to see that something was happening, make them a part of the process. And people loved that part of it. But then, in order to get through the contingencies, we had to raise a lot of money. So we started our member loan campaign, and here's one of our awesome volunteers who kept going out there and filling in the carrot as we went. And we did all kinds of events and activities around that. These are 9 people in this picture, because you're seeing 3 owners of the co-op. You're also seeing 3 investors in the co-op. You're seeing 2 awesome, amazing volunteers and our general manager. So 9 people crammed in that picture in our $100 a month rented office with free Wi-Fi from the bar across the street. But it worked. So here's, again, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but why did we have to raise so much money? Because that's how much it cost us to start our co-op. We spent over $500,000 just on the building, just on leasehold improvements. We didn't own the building, so we have made the landlord very happy with that, and a whole bunch for equipment, inventory, fees, staffing, and those bottom 2, working capital allowance and overrun allocation, are really, really, really critical. You got to have cash to keep you going until the business is working on it, is financially sustainable on its own. And stuff happens. You've got to have an overrun allocation. Stuff happens. And we were, because I was the head of the board and I was kind of a dictator about this stuff, I said, we're not touching our overrun allocation. Every time we have something that costs us more, we're increasing the cost of the project and we're going out and raising more money. My board hated me, I gotta say. But we ended up having almost all that money by the time we opened the doors, which then got to be switched over to working capital for our general manager to use. So we had a successful loan campaign. Our goal for our loan campaign was $600,000, and we actually hit a little over $670,000. So we were very excited about that. We got to almost just about 1,000 shares, 1,000 members at the end of it. 200 lenders. This is very typical of what we're seeing across the country. About 1 in 5 owners takes part in the capital campaign. Our average loan size was pretty typical, maybe a little on the low side. We also got a loan of $584,600, our first position loan, so that's the loan that actually has all of the security on all of our equipment, etc. That's through a local individual who stepped forward, someone none of us knew. No one, to our knowledge, no one except for a few key people in our community knew that this was a person of wealth who stepped forward and made that loan to us. It was quite amazing. Another story, I can tell you at another time. So now we've raised the money, we can actually do things with the building. So we thought, well, first thing we need to do, it looks terrible, let's try to pretty it up a little bit. So we painted these awesome murals in the windows of the building, just to show people that food was going to be here again, which was really fun and bad. That Frankenstein thing there, that's the window that broke. Because according to our glass people, because we put dark paint on it, it absorbed heat, cracked the window. Why that was impactful is because the city had already told us, once again, those windows are not up to code, but as long as you don't have to modify them in any way, we'll grandfather them in. As soon as one cracked, we had to replace the entire front of the building. That was another overrun. But now you're getting a sense that we're actually doing demolition. Something is happening in the building, which was pretty darn exciting. These are various demolition pictures. That was the old cash office from the old grocery store. It was like a bunker that had a big old safe in it that we all had to get rid of all that stuff. And one of the things we did during this period, again, to keep in touch with people and also because it was fun and we were into having fun, was we had store tours every month of construction. We had one Saturday a month where we would sweep the rusty nails and broken glass out of the way and bring in some snacks and open up the store to the community to look at what was going on in there, and people loved it. We put up signs, on blank walls saying, "This is where produce will be at some point. That's where frozen might be someday. Welcome to the Deli." It was really fun. People loved it. Our local roller derby team showed up for most of these. I think they just liked the big expanse of concrete, but they were awesome. They would do while we're saying, imagine this blank wall is going to be a bread display. They'd be like circling around doing the Vanna White hand motions. It was really awesome. They were great. So now we're actually building our store. We've done the demolition. We've raised the money. You can see those are the new energy efficient windows that cost us a fortune there. That's the cash office, that little box there. So we're actually making it happen. Oh my gosh. That's our awesome bookkeeper, Brian, wearing clothes that don't go with the color scheme of the store, but we'll forgive him for that. One of the things you might notice here is, we wanted to do this right, but we also had to be very careful with money. This was our money, our community's money, our neighbors' money, all of it. And we were being really, really conscious of that. So as part of, we wanted to make it special, but we also wanted to be very cost conscious. So we tended to use colors and shapes rather than fancy materials because, it doesn't really cost any more to paint it a fun color than a drab color. And then those soffits, I don't know if you can really tell, but they're all sort of wedge-shaped. They're concealing ducts and electrical and stuff like that, but it makes it a little more visually interesting. That's looking at our foyer, where the shopping carts live, and kind of the airlock, so on cold or hot days, we're hopefully not releasing too much of our energy into the parking lot. Another view across the store during construction. That's the cash office with its final coating of corrugated metal on it. That's our deli area, which you'll see these completed too, but that has our salad bar. Those two cases there, that one case is, they call it the grab-and-go case. It's pre-made sandwiches, soups you can take home and heat up, pre-made salads, things like that. Meat cases next to it, coffee and stuff in the back. Check stands that, here's there's a million decisions that have to be made as the store gets built out. And we had an awesome general manager who did that, made those decisions along with our architect, our store designer, our graphic designer. Like, who knew that check stands, you have to choose all the colors and finishes there. So that's one of our university's colors. I never would have thought of it. I would have just said, I don't know, make it gray. That's, again, looking towards the foyer, across the check stands. That's one of our guys from our local credit union who put an ATM in there. Our credit union was an awesome partner because credit unions are also cooperatives. And for a while, they ran a special that if you got a car loan through them or a mortgage, they would buy half of your ownership share in the co-op. It would be $100. That was an awesome deal. They continue to be a great partner for us. So now we're actually beginning to install freezers and coolers. The glass door are freezers. Jerry cooler on the left with the cheese pagoda in front there. This is the last store tour that we did because at this point we're getting closer to opening. With the floor has been polished. It's just a polished concrete floor. The lighting is in for the most part, except for where there are still cables hanging from the ceiling. So we're getting closer. We're getting closer. We did not do hardly any of it ourselves. We had the best of intentions and thought, oh, we'll save $1 zillion. No. We realized very quickly that if we delayed our contractors by even a couple of hours, we were completely shooting whatever cost savings we thought we were making. So the only thing we did do ourselves was we did the big signs that say what department they are, which we did in the middle of the night, so we weren't in the way of the contractors. And one owner built that sign and then we projected onto it and painted over the projection. It probably was a total waste of time and effort, but we like it. Here we're beginning to actually stock the shelves now with the help of folks from other co-ops and the National Cooperative Grocers Association, because one of the cooperative principles is cooperation among cooperatives. So we had folks who came up from our next closest cooperative, which is in Roanoke, Virginia, 2 hours away. And they spent a week there. They kept sending staff up, and we kept sending staff down to them to basically shadow their staff to learn how to do their jobs. It was really amazing. That's the bulk section they're installing there. This is probably opening day because there's still some empty shelves, and the aisle signs don't say anything yet. They just have the Velcro on there. But we actually do have produce, so this was probably June 6th, 2011, when we opened. We waited about 5 weeks to have another party, which would be the grand opening party. You know, it was awesome. Live music, great band, all kinds of kids stuff going on, lots of free food, and it was a really good sales day also. So what is it doing today? Well, we've been open a little over 2 years now. We're hitting all of our hitting or exceeding our financial goals in that time. We've got great local organic fresh flowers. We have member appreciation days. Actually now, because we've gotten financially stable enough, our member appreciation days have gone up to 10% off on those days. I think they're once a quarter. We have plenty of parking for people who take all kinds of different vehicles to the co-op. We also we're involved in a whole range of different organizations, but the Farm to Table Breakfast is a fundraiser that we help provide a lot of the food for and do some of the cooking for that benefits our local food bank. And it's an awesome breakfast. That's our wellness section. This is an early map of our local vendors. Since then, that's grown substantially, but that gives you a sense of how committed we are to supporting our local producers and growers. And that just keeps growing. You know, you think that you start a co-op and all the local farmers are going to immediately be lining up to sell to you, and they're not. They want to see what you're doing. They want to see if it's going to work. And, you know, frankly, some of them came to us and said, you know, I sell at the farmer's market at my farm stand, so why, you know, I'm selling at full retail, so why would I sell to you at wholesale? Or, I'm already selling everything I can grow. So it does take some time to build, but we have a lot of awesome local vendors. We have 2 CSAs that use our store as their pickup point, so they bring all their CSA boxes to our store, and then people pick them up from there. It's awesome for them, and it's awesome for us. It's a great situation. Here's one of our local vendors with her kimchi and sauerkraut. She makes some really yummy stuff. Our bulk section, clean, shiny, bright, not necessarily the old image that some people may have of the hippie co-ops of, scoops in old Rubbermaid trash cans. No, this is really easy to use, clean, bright, fun. I think this was at Halloween. We had a whole bunch of different things, including healthy snacks, but fruit and veggie face painting, a costume contest. I think we even had a dog costume contest. That's our salad bar with hot soup at the end. Sorry, it's at an angle, but anyways. We're part of our local Green Innovations Tour, showing our build-out and various other aspects of our operations that we're trying to be as energy efficient as we possibly can be. We do giveaways to help promote the store. That's a gift certificate in that happy customer's hand. We've established a community fund that people can apply for small grants to help them get their project off the ground. We're just trying to pay it forward because we had such awesome, amazing support from our community. We want to keep moving that forward. We do try to have some events in the store. That's Sandor Katz, the Kraut King. I had no idea who he was before he showed up and did this thing, but it was an awesome presentation. You can pickle anything. He will tell you how. We don't have a community room in our co-op at this point, so that's why we just pushed the bread out of the way and set up chairs and went for it. We also don't have a kitchen in our co-op, but it's coming. I'll get to that point. We have a little seating area. This is part of building community, that we have a place where people can sit, enjoy their lunch, meet with people both inside and out. There's picnic tables out there. Free Wi-Fi, of course. You no longer have to use the bars across the street. We have a lending library with different cooperative resources, books, magazines. You can take what you want. You can bring what you want. It's kind of fun. Our pie showdown, which also benefits our local food bank. We just did that. This year's was just last week, and I'd never had orange pie before. But my first thought was, this is going to be terrible. It was pretty good. History of cookies. Again, just trying to have fun with it. We had a whole section on wellness that included all kinds of free stuff on our patio, which is the area out front where we have our picnic tables, bike ride, bike maintenance out there. Again, just looking at what the community wanted and needs, and trying to do everything we can to be connected and to have fun.
What is a melon ride?
Yeah.
Pardon? The melon ride is a family-friendly bike ride that ends up back at the co-op where everybody has watermelon. So, the computer recycling day or electronic waste recycling day was awesome. I forget exactly how many tons, but they went to a reputable recycling organization, kept them out of the landfill. So again, this is what we're doing now and have been doing since opening, just about a little over 2 years in. And now we're getting ready for our next adventure. And I include this slide because we've been trying, as our business has grown steadily, we've been trying to expand in our footprint. So one of the things we did was bought a new freezer and put it in and moved all the ice cream to it, and everybody went to the old one and said, "What happened to all the ice cream?" So we had to make a little poster that said, "Just turn around and you'll find the ice cream." But our next phase is, there's another 4,000 square feet in our building that's come up for lease that we're taking that over. So by late next year we will have a kitchen, we'll have a community space, and about another 2,000 square feet of retail space. That's our store. That's what it looks like. Well, obviously the sky is a little augmented, but yes.
And how is your landlord?
Our landlord is much happier now. Yes. He, part of what we learned, and this is one of the things I think is great about co-ops compared to like chain groceries is. That guy's a local community member who represents his family. So he had all these cousins and aunts and uncles who were looking at this and, depending on him to make a good decision. Every time we had an event, we invited him. Every time we had an event, he invited one of those aunts and uncles to come with him. And we'd load up their plates with food and, hots and hamburgers and stuff. And over time they got really, comfortable with it, and of course now they look at their building. We've added enormous value to the building, to that whole corner of downtown, and we have people, even though it's been 25, 27 years now, we have people who come in all the time and say, I came here with my mom when this was the Mickermack, which was the name of the grocery store. So they're pretty happy with it.
Does it make a difference that you have more people in town than we do? You said you had 44,000, and I'm not sure what we have, but is it 10? 15?
Well, it's certainly, more people are more shoppers, but that's part of, when I talked about the 3 stages, part of the feasibility stage is doing a market study that looks at how many, not just how many people you have, but how, what's the education level of those people, the income level of those people, and what's the other competition. So that's an area where, we have more people. We also have 2 super Walmarts in our city proper that each have giant grocery departments.
Wow.
We've got an independent grocery, we've got Food Line, we've got Kroger's, and we've got Martin's all in town. And that doesn't even get into the 2 other health food stores and the probably half dozen ethnic groceries ranging from Asian, Latino, Russian. You look at the whole picture, not just how many people, but how many other stores, how much competition, other aspects. Yes?
What I find about the story was it's not in the upper end, it's in the lower end of your community.
It is.
So you're getting a lot of people, these, obviously they're just neighbors coming in, but also got to be from coming in from all over the towns.
Yep. And in our market study, that was a big eye-opener for us, where we had this national expert come in who deals with just natural and organic stores, which is, even though we have a good amount of non-organics in our store, pretty much everything we have local is not organic, because that's our farmers. But they came in and looked at what our potential was for that exact location, looking at what are the people in the neighborhood going to be shopping, and also what's the definition of our trade area. Because we kind of put our finger on the map, there's the store, drew a circle, thought that's who we're going to be drawing from. And she said, no, your trade area is like a hot dog. It's very long and thin, because we're in a valley with a highway running through the valley, so you can get an hour south, you can get 60 miles south fast, but we've got mountain ranges on either side. So you can, it takes you longer to go 30 miles east or west than it does to get 60 miles north or south. So that's when we realized that, for shopping habits, nobody's coming over. We got Charlottesville, Virginia over the mountain. Nobody comes from Charlottesville, Virginia to Harrisonburg to shop, even though it's really only like 50 miles. But you got a mountain in the way with lots of fog, deer, moose, etc. So yeah, this was the side of downtown we wanted to be on. It was also the side of downtown we could afford, and it was the side of downtown that had a lot of empty storefronts. And we have, in terms of serving that local community, you can't see it here, but over a block away is our 2 different apartment houses that are subsidized housing. And one of the parties we had in the parking lot before opening was a giant potluck. And we realized pretty soon after this party started that we were feeding everybody in those apartment houses, which was totally great. It may have been, there are other options walking distance, had been a Dollar General and a 7-Eleven. So they were probably getting one of the best meals they'd had in a long time there. So yeah, we're in a side of town that's not the perfect side.
People are still coming to it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go there, and there.
Are you on the bus line?
We are on a bus line. There is you can see it in this picture, but right across the street here is our kind of transit center, which is a parking lot with 3 of those plexiglass, shelters. But that's where all the buses converge. We have bike parking there. We have car parking, and you can walk to it too. Yes.
2 questions.
Yeah.
The fact that you mentioned there are a lot of empty storefronts.
Yes.
The fact that you created this store here, has that changed the situation at all?
It is moving in that direction. It's slow, but we definitely have seen, we're a block off Main Street, and Main Street definitely is filling in on our side of downtown now. So yes, it's getting there.
The second question is, you showed a picture of the board. How big is your board? How big should the board be?
Well, our board is 9 people. How big it should be is dictated by your bylaws. Generally, co-op boards are between 7 and 13 people. You want enough people so that you can get a quorum at each meeting, even though somebody forgets and somebody's kid is sick and somebody has to go to the soccer game, but not so big that you can't ever make a decision. So, but 7 to 13 is sort of typical. See, yes?
Yeah, and thinking about where your store is located in the town, do you find that the lower income areas are having memberships at the co-op? And also, what is your education program like?
Great questions. The ownerships have come from a remarkably diverse range of people, both income levels and income, education, everything, but it is still, like most co-ops, the early people who came in tended to be more of your typical co-op folks, like people in this room. Whiter, probably more educated, probably slightly higher than average income for our community. But we've had great support across the board, because one of the things that we learned in our research on this is that dietary restrictions cut across all races, income levels, everything. You know, lactose intolerance, gluten issues. And it's very hard to shop that way, especially if you are lower income, working 2 jobs, have kids, have no time. You know, one of the things that we hear a lot here is that people can come and ask a question and get an answer. You know, they can go to the Super Walmart and buy some of the same products for less money, but nobody's going to help tell them, is this gluten-free? You know, can you tell me anything about this supplement that's on the shelves? Yeah, we can. So that's, I think, made a difference. And we've also adjusted some of our product mix, too. We've got a good-sized Latino food section because that was a lot of who was coming in and shopping and asking for it. So awesome, you're asking, we're going to supply. And we're continuing to grow the ownership. So we have payment plans. People can join, start for as little as $25. Everybody has to eventually pay off to the full $200. But that's also helped for people of range of incomes. So you can have one of these too in your community. In fact, you're moving in that direction, but it's going to take a big group effort. It's going to take a lot of help. Keep working on that. Yes?
How many employees do you employ?
You know, good question. I think we are up to like 24 or 5. And co-ops generally pay their employees more than the grocery industry standard, have more access to benefits. They tend to have better retention of employees, so their employees are staying longer, which means they're actually building more skills. It's becoming more of a career. So we look at it in a, you know, we are definitely bringing jobs in, but we're trying to make these meaningful jobs, equitable jobs.
Is it unionized?
It is not. Virginia's right-to-work state, which I don't even know exactly what that means, but there's really no strong service workers union for grocery workers. And it has, so far, it's not been an issue. You know, our general manager has a good package put together for them and is supporting them well and giving them lots of opportunity to learn and grow.
What are your operating hours with that size staff?
Awesome. Our hours are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. We're closed Christmas, Thanksgiving, maybe New Year's. And I think we have reduced hours on Easter. Yes.
Having gone through that and
Yeah.
consulting here, you know, give us your feeling about comparable.
Absolutely. I work with a bunch of groups across the country, and there is a range in terms of how well these groups are working. This group is laying the groundwork. They're doing the fundamentals, which is really, really important. They're taking the time and putting the effort and resources into learning what's our market, what's our financial potential here. That's a great sign, and it's a very important thing to do that some groups have a really hard time understanding the importance of that aspect. This group is also doing a great job of growing the ownership, of getting more people involved, of getting more people into the business, which is another key area. Groups that, you know, may be fortunate enough to have a benefactor or incredible grant support and say, oh, we're going to rush to open the store, but we only have 250 owners. Like, please don't do that. So, you know, things, we have seen the most successful stores do a really great job of building ownership and look at the thresholds. At each stage, we have ownership thresholds that we'd like to see you achieve, 300 owners before you move from stage 1 to stage 2, and all the way through. So I feel really good that this group is looking at those really carefully and working very hard on them, doing the business planning and fundamentals they need to do, laying the groundwork to be a successful store, I think.
We have some community members will say, well, once you tell us where you're going, we'll consider this. Do you have the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. The number one question, well, two leading questions all the time is, so where are you going to be and when are you going to open? And when I work with groups, when I do their board retreats, I if anyone remembers the Far Side cartoon about what we say and what dogs hear, in the first panel you say, bad dog, Ginger, don't ever do that again, Ginger, bad Ginger. And all the dog is hearing is, Ginger, Ginger, Ginger. If you say, there's absolutely no possible way we will have this store open by fall of 2014. No way. Tomorrow, somebody's going to walk up to you on the street and say, so I hear the store's opening in fall of 2014. So rather than look at dates, we look at how long does each section generally take. You've got a lot of pieces here, a lot of moving parts to get to be installed in the process of starting a food co-op. And I like to talk to what we did with ours, and what I talk to my groups is tell people, instead of saying it's going to be a little while yet, say, here's what we just did. We just did our first round of financial feasibility work. We're still working on it, but it's going well. Our next piece is we're going to be moving into assessing another aspect of our feasibility, or growing ownership, or whatever is the next step. And then as soon as we're done with that, we're moving on to this other part. This is how we get through our whole process to the point of opening a successful store. So you're not actually saying when, but you are letting everyone know that we have a real process here and we're following the process, and that's how we're going to get a good store. But there's always, if anything, you have early adopters, you have a big group of people in the middle, and you have your late adopters, the people who will be running in after the store's been open 6 months saying, I'm ready to join. Awesome, we love those folks. But there's, I often advise groups, don't be too stressed about the people who say, I don't know, I'll wait till you open. Great. There's a lot of other folks out there. Keep telling the awesome story of your co-op and of co-ops in general. You'll get there, and those people will eventually join.
Do you do truckload sales?
You mean in terms of having a lot of extra inventory come in?
Yeah, like the co-op in Montpelier, they get a list and the stuff is cheaper because you're buying it in bulk, big chunks.
Well, we're an NCGA co-op, and through the National Cooperative Grocers Association, which is what NCGA is, we have access to a lot of specials. So we definitely promote those. We definitely encourage people to buy in larger quantities, and we'll give some discounts for that. We are so oriented towards everything that's on the sales floor, because we don't have much backroom space, that it's hard for us to, we're moving the inventory through, we don't have any place to put it, basically. So it reduces our ability somewhat to have a truckload sale. We share our loading dock with the post office, which is not much of a share. Basically, we have to use the loading dock when they tell us, which is a challenge because we have trucks coming all day long, large and small, but we're working it out. Was there a
I noticed one thing that's different from your story than, say, a traditional grocery store, that their job is to sell groceries. A lot of what you do is community-based activity.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with selling groceries.
Yep.
Is that an intent from the beginning, or
Absolutely.
is that survival, that we got to get people in the store?
It's both. It's both. Cooperatives the world over have 7 cooperative principles that they all work with. Which concern for community is one of those principles, and I mentioned earlier cooperation among cooperatives is another. Education, training, and information. Oh yeah, and somebody asked about education in there. Since we don't yet have a room, it makes it a little more challenging, but what we've chosen to do is we have done all kinds of different events in other places, and also we've used this space outside. All of that wellness stuff, the free yoga, and all that happens there. We've used other kitchens in the community to show people how to use bulk very well. because it's such a good value to buy things in bulk, but how do you use, dried beans? A lot of people don't know, they've never done it. So we use a lot of other resources in the community to help us with that, and like I said, after next year, by the end of next year, hopefully if all goes well, we will have a demonstration, a full kitchen for our deli that will also serve as a demonstration kitchen for classes. But yeah, that aspect of concern for community, one of the cooperative principles, it was also why we were doing this. We didn't want just a grocery store. We wanted a connected store that was serving its community, that exists to serve its community. So all those different events are all just part of making that happen. And as a board, we set out what are kind of huge, we put a North Star up there. Maybe we'll never get to that North Star, but it's out there. The general manager then looks at that and says, great, if this is what you want to do for your world, for our community, here's how we're going to do it in the store every day. And a lot of those activities are based around.
Do you have an activities director that just comes up with all these ideas?
We don't have an activities director. We have someone who's in charge of all the merchandising and activities. So she does a lot because she does come up with the ideas and helps run them or find people to run them, but she also does all the in-store merchandising and advertising. That poster of the baby, that's the type of thing that she does all day long.
Have you, where you live is kind of flat?
Not totally. We're actually in the mountains on the western side of Virginia, so we're at about 1,100 feet, but we've got 5,000 foot peaks right there, 4,800.
Because you were saying it was like a valley.
Yes, that's true. We are in a
If
valley.
you're driving down Main Street in Barre, it's flat, and that's it.
Okay.
So I live on a really steep hill where a
You're
lot
right,
of...
don't we all?
And part of what helps communities is when people can walk to their post office, they can walk to a grocery store, it makes a community.
Absolutely.
And farther up my hill, even on one more steep, is a large housing. And I see that in order to make our cooperative grocery successful, I think it's going to have to include getting people to shop there who live, they have the money for groceries. There's a resource there. And we have two large housing units that are way up on hills. There's no bus access. There's no anything. Is something that we want to do is get a bus running 3 days a week, or have like a van that has. I see some of the churches that are, the new evangelical churches that are really having this huge population of young people. They go out and they pick them up and they bring them in. And I see programs. There's somebody doing a gardening program at one of the places, and they've been doing that for 3 years. The gardening's there, the soil's brought in, the seeds are donated, they have a kitchen, and about 3.5 families participate out of it. So how do we think about, because I'm really serious, if they're going to come walk downtown and take the bus, why won't they just take the bus to Price Chop or up to Shaw's or someplace like that?
Sure. And one of the big reasons why people do come to a co-op before, or in many cases in addition to going to some of the other stores, is because they own it, and it's something that they can feel proud of. Especially, there's a lot of work studies that have been done that show that, especially for people at the lower rungs of the economic ladder who don't own a lot, who don't have much of a sense of ownership in their community, being able to have true equitable ownership in something like this is actually a pretty big deal. It is a real sense of pride to walk in and know, I own this, and I own the same share as everybody else in here. My vote is the same as everyone else here. So that's part of it. Certainly education has to be part of it, and looking at innovative ways to connect your store with the community in a whole range of ways. We've looked into, and in fact we have one of our wellness things, we did in conjunction with one of our local retirement communities that's a little bit out of town, but still, we would also love to have a delivery program that could go both to them, and we have a large old order Mennonite farmer population who don't use cars. So there's already a couple different van services that do shopping in town and then take it to a central area out in the country. So we're looking at whether we can start doing something like that too. It's not a very profitable thing, but it would be a nice service. So
I just see that as when you think about 100 families, there are 100 families that could become part of the asset that don't own voting, don't own community activity, don't own the community. How do we reach out and get them to feel like they own part of this grocery?
Yeah, and really the main thing is keep doing outreach, keep doing ways for people to, offering ways for people to plug in. It won't be for everybody, but if you keep creating more and more ways for people to connect with it, more and more people will.
You were able to keep your price point down for all economic levels of people?
Well, you know, we work very hard to be as competitive as possible. You get what you pay for. So when you're getting a local tomato, it definitely costs more. Well, certain times a year, it costs almost nothing here. But generally, you're going to be paying more for things that are actually better. So, and that's part of the education process, is think about, you know, not just this is 5 cents more than the one in the other store, but think about, well, what does that 5 cents do? You know, maybe it's that the farm workers are being paid more fairly and treated better. Maybe it's that our staff is getting paid more. And that's part of the story that has to keep getting told over and over again about why co-ops are different. But in general, we do try to be as competitive as we can be. Some things we probably have close to a loss or at a loss to be competitive. But, you know, again, a lot of stuff, we've got the best selection of milk in town, and people love that. We have milk in glass that's from nearby. We have cream top milk that's nearby. Nobody else is really doing that, and supporting these growers. So that's also part of the story, part of the message that we keep telling over and over again is, you know, our community, like yours, beautiful community, has a lot of things that make it special. And for us, agriculture is a huge part of that. Still lots of family farms. We're the breadbasket of Virginia. If we want those family farms to continue to be viable, thriving farms, we got to support them. We got to support them all the time, summer and winter. So again, tell these stories. Tell them over and over again. Tell them to everybody.
Are you finding those my last question, the housing units that are just down the street?
Yeah.
The ones you were feeding on the public.
Oh yeah, those, yeah.
Now, are those people shopping in your store?
To some degree they are. Those people don't shop a lot, period. They do still buy stuff at Dollar General a lot. But there's a couple people that I see in the co-op all the time who are from there, and they may, you know, like I see one woman who comes in and she'll buy one thing of celery. But you know, it's green, it's something, it's a vegetable, it's fresh. And this is something she did not have access to before. We've got another guy, local color. He goes by the name Quiet Tea Please. And that's what he's gone by for 40 years. He ran for mayor under that name. No, I'm sorry, he ran for county sheriff under that name. He's an odd bird, you know, and I saw him in there drinking tea at one of the tables one day. And I asked one of the cashiers, does Quiet Tea come in very often? And she said, well, I think he's been in here twice today. So, you know, yeah, those people, I mean, they're not getting chased out, for one thing, like in many of the other grocery stores in town, where someone who looks different or clearly is on the margins of society may not be really welcomed in. So they're welcome to sit there, and, you know, Quiet Tea sits there and he, you know, reads the newspaper and he engages people in heated political discussions. It's all good. You know, one other example is I was talking to our general manager there one day, and I had my back to the front door. He was looking at the front door, and in, you know, mid-conversation he says, "Stop! I got to do something." And he goes back into the cash office where also all the music is, you know, comes from and turns the music off. And he comes back out and said, you know, that's Mr. Jones, and whenever he comes in, he gives the universal sound, the universal signal of, I can't hear because your music's making my hearing aids howl. And they turn off the music for him so he can shop in peace and he can talk to the employees and interact. You know, it's hard to get regular grocery store to do that kind of stuff. But for co-ops, it's like, of course we're going to turn the music off for him. So, you know, We do what we can. We can't do it all, and we can't do everything, but we do what we can, and we work really hard on it. Yes?
Yeah. Talk about the loans. How much did you borrow? What were the terms?
Absolutely.
What's been paid back?
So our total cost was about $1.8 million to get the store open. $670,000 came from owners, awesome owners, at that average of about $3,200 an owner. Those are 5 to 10 year notes. So the earliest payback is 5 years, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I think we offered, they choose their interest rate up to 3% for anything under $10,000 and up to 4% for anything above it. And when we first were introduced to this idea of you let them choose, why would anyone choose any less than the maximum amount? It was we were advised by our consultant, that's how you do it, and you see what people do. It was astounding how many people would send back their loan paperwork with a $10,000 check with like 1/4% or 0% for their loan. It was amazing and very heartening. And then we're going a little over time. Are we okay?
No, we can finish this one up, then we'll wrap up, so
Okay.
folks will have to go.
I'll tell you the very brief story of the principal financing. So first position financing is critical. Usually it comes from a bank or credit union. We were working on that. We started working on this in 2006. We were almost ready to go to, banks were interested, our credit union was interested, and then the economy collapsed. And all of a sudden these people weren't even returning our phone calls. And our local credit union, bless them, they were working incredibly hard with the USDA to use USDA loan guarantees as a rural development project, blah, 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 expensive, time-consuming, very challenging, but they were working on it. And at one of our annual meetings, I made an appeal as part of my president's address, saying, if you know anyone in commercial lending at your bank or credit union, please tell them you would like them to work with the co-op. And this is one of the things I talk to a lot of groups about is, if you need something, ask for it. Because, what's the way, why do people put money into things that they believe in? Because someone asked them to do it. So anyways, I put this appeal out. Please talk to your bank or credit union. Please. We need this money. A couple days later, one of my other board members, my vice president, calls me and said, this guy called me. I don't know him, but we're in a professional association together, which I think is how he found me. And he wants to make a loan. I'm like, great. So have him write a check, do the paperwork. I said, no, I think he wants to make a big loan. How big? I don't know. Okay, I'll set up a meeting at our lawyer's office. You get him there. We'll talk this through. So, it's me, the VP, this guy who none of us had ever met before, and our lawyer. And he said, so how much do you want to borrow from the bank? And we said, I don't know, $500,000. Like, how much exactly do you want to borrow from the bank? And at that time, it was $484,600. Not that it's etched forever in my memory, but and this was, a guy, who showed up in a beat-up old Subaru wearing, just looked like anybody on the street. Said, well, I want to loan you $484,600. And we went through terms, he's a 10-year note. First year was interest only. But we've been paying him back, we've been making all of our obligations. I can't tell you exactly how much we've paid back so far, but everything we've owned, we're making the payments, or ahead on the payments. He's been awesome to work with. We made sure he understood that all of that money was at risk and that he was not getting any influence in the store whatsoever. And he said, that's great. In fact, I hope you don't use my name anywhere. I don't want anyone to know I'm doing this. So we have this anonymous lender. We have his name on the paperwork. Our lawyer looked him in the eye and said, are you prepared to lose the entire amount of your investment? And that's what she's paid to do. And his response was, I'm not going to be happy, but I'm not going to lose the farm. It's like, okay, you're awesome. And he has since, there was one part of our financing package that did not come through, unfortunately. We went back to him and said, would you be willing to make this up? He was totally great. And he's come to us and said, for your expansion, I'm ready to do my part. Wow. So, and the thing is, it's an amazing story, but we hear these stories all over the country. People, I'm almost done, I'm sorry. Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas, the Merck, great co-op there. Some years back, they were, 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and needed a substantial amount of money for it. 'Cause, planning for a major expansion and need again, put it out to the community, here's what we're gonna need. And an older farm widow comes into the store, you know, beat up pickup truck, muddy, dirty, it looks for the manager. Manager comes out, they start talking, she says, I wanna loan you that money you need. And she said, well, I mean, we're looking for, you know, I don't know the exact amount, but hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. She said, yep, that's what I want to loan you. So they made the deal, and again, the general manager said, why are you doing this? She said, well, my late husband invested in all these blue chip companies. I hate them all. He left me all this money. Sits there, guys in big cities make a lot of money off my money. I wanted to do something good in my community, which was the same thing that our guy said, was he wanted his money to be working on something good in his community. And that happens. So they're out there. You need to lay the groundwork for it by doing your due diligence, by doing the studies, making sure this is a real project that's going to fly or has the best chance possible. There's no guarantees. And then you put it out there, you articulate the need, and it's amazing what communities can do when they're given a really great thing to rally around. So with that, I will thank you so much for being here.